232 West Main Street in Watertown condemned. The city's mayor calling the living conditions hazardous and unacceptable with an overwhelming amount of trash. With more on today's developments, here's 7 News reporter Sandy Torres.
232 West Main Street in Watertown no longer livable. Workers will board it up. Residents are loading up their belongings. Around 24 people forced to move, including this woman's grandson. She admits this comes as no surprise and thinks tenants are tired of the living situation. According to city officials, serious fire hazards and safety concerns like broken fire alarms and windows and trash are a few of the violations that led to the city's decision.
Toilets that weren't working, toilets that are plugged, sinks that aren't working, sinks that are plugged, where you just can't even do your basic hygiene activity.
The city manager also says this has been a problem for several months. Alone in 2024, City Fire responded to emergencies 40 times.
The fire department and the police were here often, and so the fire department, the fire extinguishers were missing, and there was, unsupervised cooking going on.
Jefferson County Director of Housing Jillian Redder says the exact number of people being displaced is unknown, but what she does know is that around 20 units are being evicted, including any squatters. Amongst the people that used to have a home here, Redder says you can find single individuals, couples, pets, and perhaps elderly.
Several agencies set up tents to help those displaced with things like water, food, and even housing options. The county and city ready to react, knowing the building was getting condemned.
A number of people with a number of resources at their fingertips so that people can get connected and really triage some of the situations and needs that they have going on, and we can point them in the right direction and get those needs met.
City records say West Main Estates LLC owns the property. We reached out to the owner but haven't heard back. Sandy Torres, 7 News.